Chosen one. One of the quiet realities of growth is that discipline does not only change your life, it changes the atmosphere around you. When you begin living with consistent routines, clear priorities, and strong boundaries, something subtle happens in every environment you enter. The energy of the room shifts. Conversations feel slightly different. Some people become curious. Others become uncomfortable. Not because you are attacking them or judging them, but because discipline naturally creates contrast. Discipline in real life rarely looks dramatic. It does not always involve speeches about ambition or constant displays of motivation. Most of the time, it shows up in quiet, ordinary patterns that repeat every day. It is the decision to wake up early when others continue sleeping. It is the choice to stay consistent with a routine, even when no one is watching. It is the habit of saying no to distractions that once felt normal. It is the quiet commitment to finish work that others postpone. Discipline often means declining invitations that interfere with your priorities. It means leaving environments where gossip, drama, or endless distraction dominate the atmosphere. It means protecting your time and attention even when doing so makes you appear distant or different. From your perspective, these decisions may simply feel like responsibility. You are aligning your life with the direction you believe God is guiding you toward. But from the perspective of someone watching from the outside, those same decisions can create pressure. That pressure appears because disciplined behavior acts like a mirror. When someone observes your consistency, they are forced to see the difference between their intentions and their actions. Your routine quietly demonstrates what is possible when someone commits to structure and patience. Without saying a word, your life becomes evidence that change requires effort rather than excuses.
For people who are already pursuing growth, that mirror can be inspiring. They see your discipline and feel encouraged to strengthen their own. But for people who prefer comfort over change, the mirror creates discomfort. Instead of seeing possibility, they see comparison. Your consistency highlights the areas where they struggle to remain focused. Your boundaries reveal how often they say yes to distractions they later regret. Your progress reflects the potential they once imagined for themselves, but never fully pursued. This contrast is not created by arrogance. You're not announcing your discipline in order to judge anyone else. In fact, most disciplined individuals spend very little time talking about their routines. They simply live them. Yet the contrast still exists because the difference between intention and action becomes visible in shared environments. The room feels different when one person chooses structure in a space built on spontaneity and excuses. Conversations about wasted time feel uncomfortable when someone present is actively protecting their time. Jokes about procrastination sound different when someone nearby consistently finishes what they start. Your presence changes the social temperature simply by existing in a different rhythm. This is why discipline can trigger reactions that surprise you. You may assume everyone will appreciate the example you are setting. After all, your habits are improving your life and harming no one else. But human dynamics rarely operate that simply. When one person changes their behavior within a group, the entire group must adjust to that change. Some people welcome the shift, others resist it. And those who resist it often express their discomfort through humor, criticism, or subtle pressure to return to the old pattern. Understanding this reality helps chosen ones avoid a common misunderstanding. When people react negatively to your discipline, it does not automatically mean you are doing something wrong. Often, it simply means your growth has introduced contrast into an environment that was previously comfortable with its routines. That contrast can feel like pressure to people who are not ready to change. The disciplined life quietly challenges the belief that progress requires special talent or perfect conditions. It demonstrates that small decisions, repeated consistently, can transform a person's direction over time. And when that truth becomes visible in a shared space, not everyone knows how to respond to it. This is why chosen ones must learn to remain steady, even when the reactions around them shift. Your discipline is not an attack on anyone else's lifestyle. It is simply a reflection of your commitment to the path God has placed before you. But understanding why that commitment triggers discomfort in others reveals something important about human behavior, and why disciplined lives often create reactions far stronger than expected. Once your discipline becomes consistent enough to create contrast in your environment, the reactions around you begin following patterns that are easier to understand when you look beneath the surface. Most people will not openly admit that someone else's discipline makes them uncomfortable. Instead, the tension appears indirectly through jokes, subtle criticism, or dismissive comments that seem small but repeat over time. These reactions are usually driven by three deeper dynamics: the mirror effect, the scarcity mindset, and the disruption of social status inside the group. Understanding these forces helps chosen ones remain calm when others react strangely to habits that are simply improving their lives. The first dynamic is the mirror effect. Discipline naturally exposes the difference between intention and action. Many people talk about wanting better health, stronger finances, deeper spiritual focus, or greater success. These desires are common in almost every social circle, but the number of people willing to organize their daily life around those desires is much smaller. When someone begins living with consistent discipline, their routine becomes a quiet reflection that others did not ask to see. Your habits show what commitment actually looks like in practice. You wake up early when it would be easier to stay comfortable. You keep promises to yourself, even when motivation disappears. You continue building skills long after the excitement of the beginning fades. None of these behaviors criticize anyone directly, yet they create a reflection that makes avoidance more visible. Your routine is a reflection they did not ask for. For people who are already pursuing growth, that reflection can feel encouraging. They see your example and feel inspired to strengthen their own discipline. But for individuals who are used to postponing change, the mirror can feel uncomfortable. The difference between what they say they want and what they are willing to do becomes harder to ignore. Instead of confronting that difference, some people try to reduce the pressure of the mirror by questioning the value of your routine. If your discipline can be framed as excessive or unnecessary, then the reflection loses its power. The second dynamic is the scarcity mindset. Some people believe that recognition, opportunities, and success operate like limited resources. In their mind, if someone else improves their position, there is less room available for everyone else. When your discipline begins producing visible progress, individuals with a scarcity mindset interpret that progress as competition rather than inspiration. Your improvement feels like a shift in balance inside the group. If attention begins moving toward your achievements, someone else may feel their own position becoming less stable. This mindset transforms growth into rivalry. Instead of celebrating the fact that someone in their environment is demonstrating what consistent effort can produce, they begin viewing your progress as a threat to their own standing. The irony is that discipline usually expands opportunities rather than reducing them. When one person raises the standard of a group, the environment often improves for everyone willing to grow with it. But scarcity thinking prevents people from seeing that possibility. It teaches them to defend their position instead of developing their potential. The third dynamic involves status within the group. Every social circle develops informal roles that help individuals understand where they stand relative to others. Someone may build their identity around being the most knowledgeable person in the room, the most disciplined, or the most accomplished within a particular category. These roles provide a sense of stability. People feel comfortable when they know how they fit within the hierarchy of the group. But when your discipline begins producing growth, those roles can shift. The person who once felt secure as the most focused or the most ambitious may suddenly feel uncertain about their position. Your improvement disrupts the ranking they had quietly relied on. They may not consciously recognize this shift, but they feel the instability it creates. And because admitting insecurity is uncomfortable, the tension often appears in disguised forms. Instead of acknowledging that your discipline is challenging their identity, they may criticize the intensity of your routine or question whether your priorities are healthy. They do not necessarily hate your discipline itself. They dislike the feeling that their position inside the group might be changing. These three forces, the mirror effect, scarcity thinking, and status disruption, create the emotional pressure that disciplined individuals often notice once their habits become consistent. The reactions that follow are rarely direct. They appear through behavior rather than honest conversation. And that behavior reveals itself in predictable ways once the discomfort begins growing beneath the surface. Once the tension created by your discipline begins building beneath the surface, it rarely appears through direct honesty. Most people are not comfortable saying, "Your consistency makes me feel insecure," or "Your growth is making me question my own habits." Instead, the discomfort leaks out through behavior. These reactions often look small or casual at first, but when you step back and observe them over time, a clear pattern appears. The behavior is not random. It is the indirect way people release the pressure created by the contrast your discipline brings into the environment. One of the most common reactions is mockery. Humor becomes the safest way to challenge your routine without admitting the real discomfort behind it. Someone might joke that you are doing too much, working too hard, or taking your goals too seriously. They might laugh about how strict your routine is, or suggest that you should relax more. On the surface, the comment sounds harmless, almost playful. But the underlying purpose is to reduce the weight of your discipline. If your consistency can be framed as excessive or unnecessary, then the pressure it creates inside the room disappears. The joke allows everyone to return to the familiar rhythm where effort is optional and comfort remains the priority. Another reaction appears through minimizing your work. When progress begins to show, people who feel uncomfortable with your growth often attempt to shrink the significance of the effort that produced it. They might attribute your results to luck, natural ability, or fortunate timing. Your improved health becomes genetics. Your career progress becomes connections. Your spiritual focus becomes coincidence. By reframing the outcome this way, they protect themselves from the uncomfortable realization that your results came from discipline they were unwilling to practice. Ignoring the effort makes the achievement easier to dismiss. A third behavior often shows up as temptation invitations. People who once shared the same habits with you may begin inviting you back into those patterns more frequently. They suggest late nights when you are protecting your sleep schedule. They encourage distractions when you are focused on your priorities. They push conversations toward gossip or negativity when you have stepped away from that environment. These invitations do not always come from malicious intent. Sometimes they are simply attempts to restore the previous version of the relationship, but the effect is the same. If you accept the invitation, your discipline weakens and the contrast disappears. Another form of resistance comes through guilt and shame tactics. Instead of criticizing your habits directly, someone might suggest that your discipline has changed who you are. They may say you are becoming distant, too serious, or too focused on your own goals. The message beneath these statements is simple. If your discipline creates emotional distance in the relationship, then the responsibility should fall on you to reduce your standards rather than on them to grow. Passive resistance often appears next. People who once supported your progress begin withdrawing that support quietly. They stop acknowledging your achievements. They become less engaged in conversations about your goals. The encouragement that once felt natural
disappears. In some situations, competition emerges as well. Every milestone you reach suddenly becomes a comparison point. Someone else feels the need to prove they can match or exceed your progress. What once felt like shared growth turns into a scoreboard. And finally, in some cases, the reaction becomes more direct through smear framing.
Instead of challenging your discipline directly, someone reframes your character. Your focus becomes obsession. Your boundaries become selfishness. Your consistency becomes boring or rigid. This tactic shifts the conversation away from your habits and toward your personality. By attacking your character, they avoid confronting the possibility that your discipline might actually be a model worth following. Each of these behaviors reflects the same underlying truth. When people feel uncomfortable confronting their own habits, it is easier to challenge the person who exposes them. They attack your character to avoid changing theirs. Recognizing these patterns helps chosen ones remain steady without becoming bitter. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you realize the reactions are not truly about you. They're about the discomfort your discipline reveals. When discipline begins creating discomfort in the people around you, the greatest danger is not the criticism itself. The real danger is the subtle pressure to compromise the structure that built your growth in the first place. Many chosen ones reach a moment where they begin questioning whether their routines are too strict or whether their focus is making others uncomfortable. Because human beings naturally desire harmony in their relationships, the temptation appears quietly. You start wondering if you should relax your standards just enough to restore the old dynamic. Maybe waking up earlier than everyone else feels unnecessary if it creates tension. Maybe protecting your time begins to look selfish when someone complains that you are unavailable. These thoughts often appear slowly, disguised as kindness or flexibility. But if you follow them too far, they weaken the discipline that has been protecting your future. Discipline is not simply a collection of habits. It is the structure that carries the direction God placed inside you. Without that structure, your energy becomes scattered across distractions and expectations that were never meant to define your life. That is why the first response of a chosen one must be simple and firm. Do not negotiate your routine. The routines you built were not random decisions. They came from clarity about what kind of life you are trying to build. When someone challenges those habits, they are not only questioning your schedule, they are questioning the foundation that supports your progress. Explaining that foundation repeatedly rarely changes anyone's perspective. People who respect discipline already understand it. People who resent discipline rarely become convinced through long conversations. This is why discipline must be protected through consistency rather than explanation. Quiet repetition communicates commitment far more clearly than debate ever could. Another important adjustment for chosen ones involves reducing the amount of information they share about their goals and routines. Many people assume openness will create understanding, but in environments that resist growth, too much transparency can actually invite unnecessary interference. When every plan is discussed publicly, every habit becomes open for commentary. Opinions multiply. Suggestions appear from people who do not share the same priorities or discipline. Before long, your process begins absorbing the emotional noise of the environment around you. The wiser response is learning how to move quietly. This does not mean becoming secretive or distant from everyone in your life. It means becoming selective about who receives access to your process. Early stages of growth require protection. When something is still developing, it is more vulnerable to doubt and distraction. By limiting how much information leaves your circle, you allow the work to mature without constant outside pressure. The results can speak later when the foundation is stronger. At the same time, discipline naturally reveals another truth that many chosen ones eventually recognize. Not everyone in your environment is meant to move forward with you. Growth changes relationships because it changes priorities. Some people thrive in environments where consistency and progress are valued. Others feel uncomfortable in those same spaces because they prefer spontaneity, comfort, or entertainment. When your discipline becomes stronger, the difference between builders and drifters becomes clearer. Builders respect discipline, even if they are still developing their own. They understand the value of effort and patience. They recognize that meaningful results require structure. Drifters, on the other hand, often feel threatened by discipline because it challenges the lifestyle they have grown comfortable maintaining. The response to this realization is not hostility or judgment. It is discernment. Chosen ones learn to choose their circle intentionally. Relationships built on shared values and mutual growth become more important than relationships built only on familiarity. This shift may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you are used to keeping everyone equally close. But proximity influences direction. The people closest to you shape the environment where your habits either strengthen or weaken. Surrounding yourself with individuals who respect discipline makes consistency easier to maintain. Another powerful tool chosen ones learn during this season is simplicity in communication. When someone challenges your routine, long explanations are rarely necessary. Calm, short responses often protect your boundaries more effectively. A brief acknowledgement that your focus is elsewhere communicates commitment without inviting debate. When the conversation moves on, the tension often fades with it. This approach prevents your discipline from turning into a constant topic of negotiation. It simply becomes part of how you live. Finally, discipline sometimes opens a door for leadership. When your environment is safe and receptive, your example may inspire others to pursue their own growth. But true leadership does not rely on preaching or forcing your habits onto someone else. It happens through modeling. People observe your consistency and eventually become curious about how you built it. When they ask sincerely, you can share the lessons that helped you. But until that curiosity appears, your responsibility remains simple. Continue building the life you were called to build. Discipline was never meant to impress people. It was meant to prepare you for the future God is guiding you toward. Chosen one. After you have watched the reactions, felt the tension in certain rooms, and noticed how people respond differently to your consistency, an important realization begins to settle in. Your discipline was never the problem. The discomfort surrounding it was never truly about your routine, your boundaries, or your focus. What your discipline actually did was reveal the truth about the environment around you. It exposed which relationships were built on shared growth and which ones were built on shared comfort. Discipline is powerful because it quietly separates people who are ready to grow from people who need you to remain the same. When someone begins living with consistent standards, they introduce a new level of expectation into the environment, not through lectures or criticism, but through daily example. The simple act of showing up for your goals repeatedly changes what is normal in the room. And once the standard changes, everyone around you must decide how they will respond. Some people see the invitation immediately. They notice your routine and begin reflecting on their own habits. They might ask questions about how you built your consistency. They become curious about what it would look like to strengthen their own discipline.
For these individuals, your growth becomes encouragement. They do not interpret your consistency as pressure. They see it as proof that change is possible. They recognize that the same principles guiding your progress could help them build something meaningful in their own lives. These people are often the ones God places near you intentionally. They understand that growth multiplies when people pursue it together. But not everyone responds this way. For others, your discipline feels like disruption rather than invitation. They preferred the environment when everyone shared the same pace and the same level of effort. When you change that pace,
It quietly exposes the difference between intention and action inside the group. Instead of responding with curiosity, they respond with resistance. They may joke about your focus, question your priorities, or frame your consistency as unnecessary intensity. On the surface, it sounds like criticism of your habits, but underneath the words is a deeper message. Your discipline makes it harder for them to remain comfortable with their current choices. They are not truly fighting your routine. They are fighting the pressure it creates for them to reconsider their own. This is why chosen ones must understand something very clearly. You cannot shrink your standards to protect someone else's comfort without weakening the very structure that is building your future. Discipline is not simply a personal preference. It is the system that allows your purpose to grow. The routines you practice every day are shaping your capacity, your character, and your ability to carry the opportunities God is preparing for you. When God calls someone to leadership, He rarely begins with public recognition. He begins with private consistency. Leadership is built in the quiet places where discipline becomes a form of obedience. Every time you choose structure over distraction, you strengthen the foundation of your future.
Every time you keep your word to yourself, you build the reliability that leadership requires. These small decisions may appear ordinary to people watching from the outside, but spiritually, they are part of a much larger preparation. God often develops leaders through routines long before He reveals the platform those routines are preparing them for. That is why discipline must remain sacred to you, even when others misunderstand it. Your routine is not simply about productivity. It is about alignment. It is the daily structure that keeps your life pointed toward the calling God placed inside your heart. And when you protect that structure, you protect the direction of your life. The discomfort others feel around your discipline will eventually serve a purpose as well. Over time, it reveals who can grow alongside you and who prefers the environment where growth is optional. That revelation is not something to celebrate with pride, nor something to grieve with bitterness. It is simply clarity. Some people will adjust and grow with you. Others will remain where they are comfortable. Both responses help you understand how your path is unfolding. In the end, discipline always produces something deeper than visible success. It produces identity. Through consistency, you become the kind of person who finishes what you start. You become someone who honors commitments even when motivation disappears. You become someone who values purpose more than comfort. These qualities are not developed in moments of applause. They are formed in the quiet repetition of daily habits that few people notice. And when that transformation is complete, something remarkable happens. The same discipline that once made certain people uncomfortable becomes the evidence that your life is built on something real. Not hype, not temporary motivation, but consistency strong enough to carry the future you once prayed for. When you understand that truth, your perspective changes. Your discipline stops feeling like a burden you must defend. It becomes the invitation God placed in your life. An invitation to grow, to lead, and to become the person capable of carrying the purpose you were called to fulfill. If this message spoke to the season you are in, take a moment to recognize the discipline you are building right now, the routines you protect, the distractions you refuse, and the standards you maintain may not always be understood by the people around you. But discipline is rarely meant to be popular in the beginning. It is meant to prepare you. Stay consistent with the habits that are shaping your future. Protect your focus, guard your time, and keep aligning your life with the direction God has placed in your heart. Over time, the results of quiet consistency will speak louder than any explanation ever could. If you're committed to that path, comment "discipline" as a reminder to yourself that you will not shrink your standards. And subscribe for more Chosen One messages on growth, boundaries, and elevation.